The original version of this video was uploaded to Jason Verney's YouTube channel, where it and many other videos, podcasts, snippets and films can be found. That channel can be found at youtube.com/Jason Verney. It's actually a pig's eye, not your eye, and that's when he takes off his patch and he goes, "Oh yeah, I have got my eye."
Yeah, and
so
that's a great way to get revenge. Actually, it's hilarious.
This is the No So Co-Po with Jay and Tim. I am Jason Verney, and he is Timothy Home. You'll actually hear Tim in a minute or two in this episode of the Not So Korean podcast. As you probably know, and as we always say, we usually record this live in UK's Koreatown itself. That's an area in and around New Malden. Yes, that's the largest Koreatown and Korean community in Europe. And in this episode, we record it whilst approaching Koreatown, or gradually approaching Koreatown. Before I elaborate, I will say that we've got a couple of great interviews coming your way from the next episode onwards. We will still be sort of mixing up those episodes with the interview episodes and other sort of event episodes with these on-the-fly chit-chat, on-the-go sort of episodes, which you're going to hear in a second. So, in this second on the fly, on the go, on the move episode, Jay, that's me, and Tim, that's him, are literally on the move, and indeed on the way home, or if you like, on the train. And that is to Koreatown, because we're coming back from a special event arranged by the brilliant people at the London Korean Film Festival or aka the Korean Cultural Centre London, UK. Basically, it was their first Korean film night of 2022, and it was held at one of my favourite independent cinemas in London, and that being the Genesis Cinema. The film in question is Kim Ki-young's An Experience to Die For, and starring the Oscar-winning actress Yuh-Jung. This was an early film. The film has also been known, or is known as Angel, Become an Evil Woman, or I believe also with the two titles combined, so it's like An Experience to Die For, Angel, Become an Evil Woman. It was a lovely evening anyway. We managed to catch up briefly with Diya on Korea. Anyone who knows of Diya may have also heard one of our previous episodes where we interview Diya on Korea. Plus we grabbed a little chat with the Korean film expert Mark Morris. After all, it was him that introduced the film on this night. We even have time to speak a little about a film which we've touched on previously, and that's the Korean and sort of internationally infused Japanese film Drive My Car. You might ask why that is, but basically we've talked about it before, and I saw it a second time this particular day at the Genesis Cinema before the Korean feature, so I wanted to bring up some things that we might have mentioned before related to Korea or Korean culture or the film itself. That's it, and so I hope you enjoy this episode. Here are Jay and Tim.
The climax of the climax.
Oh yeah, the climax in more ways than one.
Showed like the inside of his body or something, but I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be his heart or.
Oh yeah, I wondered was it meat? Oh, I thought it was something. Yeah, I thought it was some sexual organ at one point, I was a bit concerned. Yeah, so that was really that part of the film. The weird thing is about that part of the film was that the poison in the drink, or the potential poison in the drink, was actually one of the most enjoyable parts of the film. Well, for me, I don't know about for you. Was it for you?
Well, what do you mean by enjoyable?
Well, I mean, we were just saying just before we switched on record, we were just saying that it was all over the place, jumping all over the place. But because those scenes with Yuh-Jung, no, sorry, not her, the other character. Yes. What's her name?
Yeah, I forgot her name.
The other main girl. She was because those scenes were more
extended.
Yeah, it was actually we could follow it. We could follow it. Someone swapping the drinks over, which is not a new thing. Well, it was a new thing back then. When was it made?
1990 or 89, 88 maybe.
Yeah. We're talking about the film, which was called An Experience to Die For, We're not sure if the actual experience of seeing the film was to die for.
Yeah,
but
it might kill you from laughing, I guess, maybe, just at how over the top it was.
Yeah, it was. We've just come from the London. Well, it wasn't a teaser screening. It was the Korean Film Night by the London Korean Film Festival, aka the KCC UK, Korean Cultural Centre, because they kind of put it on. And we've just seen a film that was quite rare. It was shown in Busan Film Festival in that year, or around that year, and we're actually, by the way, we're actually recording this. Literally, we've done a couple of episodes like this where we're doing on the move, on the go, on the fly, and we're actually headed to Koreatown, New Malden, which is where our last episode like this was based, and where we're normally based. But we thought we'd do this on the way back from the screening. So basically, it was a film that was rarely seen by anybody. And we think it was because of the censors, or wondering what the censors would do for the film. But the film itself starred Yuh-Jung, Yuh-Jung, and Kim Ki-young was the director, Kim Ki-young, director who's done The Housemaid,
Woman on Fire.
Woman on Fire, which was also part of the London Korean Film Festival a few months ago.
Yodo Island.
That's the is that the shaman one, the shamanistic one?
And actually, the end scene of that film reminded me a little bit of the end scene of this film.
What, the sort of the bedroom thing?
Yes,
yeah, that was it was a bit ritualistic. So it's not Satan thing, but it was very.
Well, there's involving a snake.
That was it. It involves. Cobra sort of bells. Oh no, sorry, cobra venom.
But she was using these bells to signify that she was acting like a cobra or something.
That was it. Yeah, in fact, on the soundtrack. Because by the way, this film we've seen was remastered
in 4K.
Yeah, and it did look amazing. I will say I thought the colours were a bit too pink and red in places, but it also looked really good. That was just my, I'm always complaining about something on the cinema screens, but it looked really good. But the sound was overdubbed.
Or post, what do they call it? Post-sync sound.
Yeah, the sound was sort of post-sync sound, but the thing was, it was very. What I was trying to say about the bells. We're talking about a particular scene near the end of the film, without being trying to give anyone spoilers. But there's a bit where these bells are on the hand of a woman, and they're used in the soundtrack, or they're kind of used in the ambience, but they're used quite quite heavily, prominently, and constantly,
as well as the horse sounds. A few other sounds.
Some other sounds of bedroom nature. And that was, like Mark Morris, who introduced the film, he knows sort of everything about Korean film, and he did say, look, he gave a little bit of information about the film before it started, and he said this is spoiler free, although it did tell us the story a little bit, so I class it as perhaps potentially spoilerable. But the film I found that part of the film most interesting, and but up to that point the film was very sort of sporadic and all over the place, and it was.
Well, as Mark said before the film, it's possible that the film wasn't actually finished, or at least it has the feeling that it wasn't entirely finished, and actually the director shelved the film and he didn't want it to be seen for one reason or another. And so I am wondering, did he actually finish the editing completely, or did he just leave it,
Or did he, did he, like Tim just said, did he leave it, or did he get involved half of it and someone else took over, who maybe had a different idea of how to cut to other scenes, because there was a lot of that, wasn't there? There were some other interesting factors which I was thinking about as well throughout the film. We have the bridge, which Tim was discussing with me earlier. It was the Olympic Bridge, which was for 1988
Olympics. It was built sometime in the 80s for the lead up to the 1988 Seoul Olympics.
And actually there were some scenes where I noticed in the house or the flat, and they had a calendar on the wall, or maybe a sort of cloth one. It was 1988. Now, like you said, that could have been 1990 it was filmed, but they just, like, people keep memorabilia from that. That was a very big year for, I even remember that, Korean Olympics. But I noticed as well, that the along the riverbanks of the Han River, you didn't have that many skyscrapers. You had a few buildings but it did look in certain scenes throughout the windows, and that it seemed like it was almost. It's quite foggy and misty and that, and it wasn't that many buildings because that was the time back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s.
But interestingly, they did use a lot of sounds that sounded like things were under construction.
Yeah.
So potentially that was like, showing that things were getting built, maybe
evolving.
along the river.
Yeah, because that was almost something he kept going back to. It was almost like a spooky thing. As I say, we're on the train, that's why you can hear that beeping noise. We're literally on the go, on the move. And it was almost kind of, what did I say earlier? It was like abstract, or it was kind of metaphor or something. The bridge was really, it would show the bridge from a distance, and they would use this really clunking sound from as if it was up close on the bridge. Well, another thing we had regarding metaphors or whatever, that we had these paintings of horses in red and red paint pictures generally, and there's some noises of horses running or grunting, not grunting, what's the
noises
horse noises, and it was all very again abstract, I suppose, but going back to that bridge, also there was the mention of suicide. They alluded to suicide, I guess. Someone was going to jump off the bridge. Now that, I'm not saying that's Korean because it's Korea, because they're known to have a high suicide rate, but it could have been any country. You have a bridge and someone jumps off, but it has been featured in a lot of other Korean films, certain bridges. I don't know if it's been that bridge. Yeah, so that was a couple of things, and it was crazy how the plot. I mean, Mark did say about this at the beginning, but how the plot was
super melodramatic. It's like a soap opera almost, but taken to the 11th degree or something.
Yeah, but we asked Mark Morris afterwards, and there was a couple of scenes which were really funny in the audience. A lot of these films do come across as funny, and Mark Morris said, they weren't to be taken. They weren't meant to be funny. He didn't think, but there was one scene, because there was a repetitive moment that kept occurring in the film, and there was these two guys would burst in on a guy cheating with a woman. I'm not going to go into details because that's a spoiler, but one of the characters, and these two men would come in. You're committing adultery, and they would beat him up or do something. And one scene, this was one of the strangest and funniest to everybody, was they seemingly took out one of his eyes.
Yeah.
And then he takes that eye that we see in a metal tin. He takes that full eye to a doctor or something.
Some sort of
doctor,
private clinic maybe or something.
Private clinic, and he says, "Oh no, that's because the guy who brings it in has
his eye."
Because
he realizes his eye is still in his socket.
Yes, because he's got in with an eye mask, like an eye patch or something. So we think his eye has disappeared, and he goes, "No, what you're holding there in that tin or whatever in Korean is actually a pig's eye, not your eye." And that's when he takes off his patch, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I have got my eye."
Yeah, and then that's a great way to get revenge. Actually, it's hilarious.
Yes,
so I think that was meant to be.
Yes,
funny,
I can see why it would. Because there's no way in real life that you would go with you first of all you'd be in great agony, pain, and you'd be spurting blood everywhere, I imagine. But so there was a few moments like that in the film, probably, and there was some slicing up a live chicken in the sink.
Stabbing a chicken, but I don't know. I didn't see any blood come out of the chicken, so I'm hoping that maybe it was a fake knife or something.
No,
they were
I
just
wondered that, but it did look quite real.
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, we know in The Housemaid there was always mouse or rats being used, wasn't there? Rats? Was it rats? I mean, back the original Housemaid. But I mean, anyway, that was back then. Times have changed, even in Korea.
Yeah.
So, and when I'm trying to think, the film opens on a kind of a driving school, and it's mostly women drivers learning to drive. And you have Yuh-Jung. She turns up in a car right next to the other main character. So originally in the film, there's kind of three girls involved. Yuh-Jung, she's the older woman, a younger woman who's the main character, the other main character of the film, and another early. There's a kind of a love triangle. Is it love triangle? There's another woman involved with a man. It's really difficult to explain this, and we're also trying to be deliberately vague because we don't want to be. But I mean, you can read more about this film if you just look it up. And actually on the London Korean Film Festival website, or even it would be on the Genesis Cinema website. I don't know what we can add about this. I was going to mention a couple of things about the film I saw before, which we've already mentioned in the podcast, Drive My Car. But is there anything else you can think of in that film that comes to mind? This is only a brief podcast.
Yeah. Well,
there's lots of scenes of
Mark
blood.
Also mentioned that Yuh-Jung apparently did not want this film to be part of her own retrospective. So I don't know if that means that she's not particularly proud of the film or her performance in it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
I was actually thinking that I've definitely seen her give better performances than this one.
Yeah.
It wasn't like her finest hour or anything.
It's also difficult to see. I mean, she thinks she did perform well, but is it also difficult to tell when it's overdubbed or when it's her voice, but it's not dubbed spot on, and
when the material is so
weak.
A bit
when it's so
odd, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, it's all exposition for the first half an hour. It's like setting it right up. Oh, and of course I must mention there was 3 young children in it, or 3 children, and something bad happens to them with one of the women involving a certain vehicle, but it was quite funny to see them acting because they were told to do something.
Yeah, I mean, their acting, I don't think, was done by themselves, because it sounded like it was almost adults playing children's voices.
Do you think?
Or something.
I hadn't really. Probably was, because then they were going, but they were saying mummy or mama.
Yeah, but it sounded kind of fake to me. I don't know.
They were obviously instructed to walk to the camera. I mean, this is what happens in filming anyway. But the audience found it very amusing. We've been to enough Korean films in the last decade or more to know that, these old films, and not just Korean, Japanese ones and others, get laughter.
The quality was not quite at the level that we know it is today, and it was sort of maybe around 1997 that films really started to improve in quality in Korea, I would say.
Yeah.
At least in terms of the production values,
Yeah, you're right. I think it was around that time. So I'm just going to take a pause this while we change trains, and then I'll carry on talking about something else afterwards. Okay, we're on the second train, and the next stop that we will be getting off at is New Malden, aka KoreaTown. So overall that film, although it was very sporadic and very quickly edited, not quickly edited, but it felt a bit of a mess in places. Maybe, as Tim was saying to me just now, Kim Ki-young has got a bit of reputation for certain stylistic ways of doing things. That's what you were saying, wasn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, well, I think his style is a bit it's not a realistic style, let's say that.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of over the top, like Woman on Fire, and the one that you were saying just now, which was that?
Yodo.
The Island. I mean, he's done more than that, but they're the ones that sprung to mind.
Yeah.
I did feel like some of it was rushed together, the exposition, and like someone had just said, let's just write this and put this together. But at the same time, a lot of work had gone into it.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't just and I'm going back to that restoration thing. I mean, I was thinking, wow, this is just like the Beatles Get Back documentary.
Yeah.
How clear it was. It was almost like it could have been made yesterday.
Like there wasn't any scratches or anything on the print or whatever.
There was one bit near that later on, a little bit of black dangling.
Hair in the gate, which they can't really.
Yes, hair in the gate. That's
not really part of the film. It's part of what the camera shot, right?
Yeah, because it was only
they can't really remove it. I mean,
weird.
They could remove it, but it's part of the actual.
Part of the so as I say, you can read more about this film that we're talking about on the London Korean Film Festival website, and also on probably the KCC UK website and elsewhere. I'm sure there's other people talking about it. But we also I went to see this is just an add-on bit of information. We both went to see the Japanese film Drive My Car a few months ago, and we mentioned it on our podcast before. But I went to see it a second time because it was just before that film at the Genesis Cinema, just before that Korean film, and it was a 3-hour film, but I thought I'd go back into it. And one thing I was thinking of, last time we were talking about the Korean element of that film, it ends in Korea, even though it's a Japanese film. A bit of a spoiler there, but it doesn't really tell you much about the story. It's set mostly in Japan. But I was thinking, and this is not necessarily related to Korea, but it's set in Hiroshima, and I was thinking this is great for Hiroshima. I know Hiroshima has a negative tone under undertones or something negative. Because of its history and what happened with the Japanese and stuff. But I thought it was good to see Hiroshima as the kind of one of the main places in the film.
But apparently, the director originally intended to film the whole film in Korea, but I think because of COVID or some other reasons, he couldn't do the whole film in Korea. So he moved it to Hiroshima, but he liked the scenery in Hiroshima as well.
Yeah, and I know that we mentioned this in our last one of our Christmas episode of the podcast, or one of these episodes where we talked about this particular film. We did talk about the fact that it does even incorporate coronavirus with wearing the masks, which Tim is wearing his mask now. I keep putting mine on and taking it off, as you can probably tell with the sound. But so maybe he wanted to include that part because that was one of the reasons for not having it in Korea fully, that's very interesting. But also just a couple of things I noticed from this second time around was, there's quite a few Korean characters and language used in this film, and there's various crew that were Korean as well, I noticed. But also in a general kind of multi-language film, I think it just does wonders, because it shows you how a film can incorporate different languages and still work in a kind of, I wish we could all live happily together in this world. It really does do a good job, and even sign language being one of those languages. I just thought to myself that you've got Korean in there, Japanese, you've got Philippine, isn't it, Tagalog?
Taiwanese, English, of course.
Oh yeah, English. The weird thing I did think, though, because we mentioned this before, that it's based on a very short novel of
Haruki Murakami.
Of his film. He's a very, very good novelist.
Very famous Japanese novelist, probably the most famous Japanese novelist in the world at the moment.
Well, I did wonder if that was part of the reason for getting all these awards, because you can't do wrong with his stuff, because he's a bit of a lover, not a lovey, but he's a bit of a, everyone loves his books who's into that kind of, into books. I mean, I don't know whether that's the reason why it's going to get all these accolades. It's a good film, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have seen it a second time otherwise. But I did wonder that, although it's based on a very short story, it's a very long film, which we mentioned in a previous episode, but it's even the play that it's weaved into a play and a play by Chekhov. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this is based on a book, a short story, and it's not even the play itself is not original. So I was thinking, hang on, when you take away the fact that it's Chekhov they're reading, because I maybe the first time around I didn't even get that it was Chekhov they were doing on stage. I mean, it's great that you can put characters onto a stage and have them all speak different languages with a kind of subtitling behind the stage.
And even sign language, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. And that was the Korean. I know, is she Korean? I think she is, because she's the Korean guy's. I won't get. I mean, she's really good anyway. And there is a moment in the film where the Korean, the deaf. She's not deaf. She's dumb, I guess. And her and this other girl from Taiwan, they have a moving scene together, and I don't know if I missed how the girls reacted, but something happened, and the director says, because this is a bit like a meta thing, isn't it? It's a bit like a meta film. You've got like a stage play within a film, but you've also, it's a book, it's a film of a book as well. But I mean, that's not necessarily meta. But I just think the second time around, I noticed other things relating to Korea, but into multi-language. And I'm glad I saw it a second time. The music was just as good.
I mean, I always wanted, when I was younger, I wanted to be a director like you, Jason. You're an actual director, but but I always thought, why doesn't somebody try to make a film like, let's say, British actors, like white British actors who are speaking in another language, like Korean or something else, as their second language, but have the whole film like that. I mean, it may be a bit gimmicky, but it would just be interesting to see something like
subtitles,
that.
Though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there would have to be subtitles.
Yeah, but I think that's why. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. But they unfortunately it goes the other way, so that we get a white person taking the part of like you get like Tom Cruise doing the what's that that samurai film. And stuff like that. But no, I agree with you. I mean, I don't know if I thought that years ago, but you definitely had. But I did think, the fact that it's a Chekhov play and it's based on a book, I thought, hang on, what's the director? I know he's a good director. He's clearly a good director. You've seen his other film, haven't you? Yeah, but I suddenly thought, yeah, but hang on, all this director who's in the film, this Japanese, is he a director? He's a stage director. But I thought all he's done really is taken Chekhov and just thought, let me get some international artists, and that's it. But maybe because he's got to that point in his career that he can literally do anything and call it art.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't art, but it was only this time around I realised it was Chekhov. And anyway, I suppose we're going off the point here that it was more, the Korean elements I was looking out for in Drive My Car. And
I think maybe he was interested in seeing, can emotion be delivered through multiple languages? Can you still feel what a character is feeling, even if there's I different levels of separation between you?
Yeah, no, I did. I think I got that as well. And it's, although, and it's another thing I found interesting. Again, it's not Rains Park. Well, we're at Rains Park now, so we've got one more stop to Koreatown. Exciting. It's what time is it now? It's roughly. It's about 9:20 now. 9:20 in the evening. Yeah, I just think it's interesting film because although it hovers around this kind of play, this play in multi-language, but also the rehearsals and also some, let's say, some sort of cheating going on, and some character who can't necessarily control his temper with photographers around. I did think to myself that it's great that it keeps coming back to it's called Drive My Car for a reason, because it's part of the reason is because it focuses on the characters in the car, but it's great how it does come back to those characters all the time, because she's not the main one of the actors, and I love that she's just the person she's just driving the car, he's using the car. But I don't know, it feels like if you think about the film afterwards, the scenes that you remember are not necessarily the ones in the car, I don't know, or the ones on the stage, but somehow it works.
Yeah, I think also in that situation where he's sitting in the back and she's driving the car, and a lot of the time they're not talking to each other, but still they have some connection, and even though they come from different backgrounds, they share a common experience. One particular experience, I mean.
Yes, with the
which I won't
leaving them.
reveal.
Yes. So that's it. And I like that. I don't know if I mentioned this in the episode when we did speak about this film. There's a bit where they both hold their cigarettes in the roof. The what do you call it? Sliding roof converter. The window that's above. It's a sporty car with a. It's like you open the sliding roof window. My God, I've got it. It's called. That's crazy. We've lost our English. That's it. Yeah, we've lost our English because we're speaking we're talking about different languages. So anyway, they put hold a cigarette out of the car, and it's almost like, I thought maybe a metaphor for like we're holding a flame for someone or something. That's or maybe that. They've not gone out or something. There's something still there. Anyway, so that was it, and I love the way that it ends in Korea. I noticed that more this time. The film actually ends in Korea. I won't say how, what. Even it could be a bit of an ambiguous ending because I was not completely told what has happened. So that's it. We'll just wrap it up with that. We'll be back on course with the next episode, and that will be an interview. A brand new interview.
Yeah, and that's perfect timing because we just arrived at New Malden Station.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there, and we'll talk next time. I'll just say the usual thing with Tim and Young-E.
Yes,
See ya.